My name is Madison Clark and I'm 34 years old. For 34 years, I believed my family had my back. I was wrong. It all started to unravel on a Tuesday morning when I was sitting in my office reviewing client portfolios. As a senior financial advisor at Morrison and Associates, I'd built a reputation for catching discrepancies others missed. Numbers don't lie, people do. That day, I had no idea I was about to discover the biggest lie of my life. If you're watching this, drop a comment and let me know where you're from. I want to see how far this story reaches. And if you've ever felt like the black sheep in your own family, hit that like button and subscribe. Trust me, you're going to want to hear this, but let me back up. Let me tell you how I got here. I grew up in Westchester County, the middle child in what everyone called the perfect family. My dad, Robert Clark, was a successful real estate developer. My mom, Linda, ran her own interior design business. We lived in a colonial house with a circular driveway, went to private schools, took family vacations to Martha's Vineyard every summer. From the outside, we had it all. My older brother, Tyler, was the golden child. Star quarterback in high school, fraternity president in college, everything came easy to him. My younger sister, Emma, was the baby, the princess who could do no wrong. Sweet, blonde, always needed protecting. And then there was me, the responsible one, the one who got straight A's without being asked. The one who worked summers lifeguarding while Tyler partied at the country club. The one who paid for my own college textbooks while Emma got a brand new BMW for her 16th birthday. Madison's just so independent, my mother would say, like it was a personality trait instead of necessity. She doesn't need as much help as the others. I believed that for years. I wore that independence like armor. While Tyler bounced from job to job and Emma changed majors 5 times, I graduated summa cum laude with a degree in finance. While they were asking our parents for money, I was building my career from the ground up. I started at Morrison and Associates right out of college as a junior analyst, worked 60-hour weeks, earned my CFA certification, climbed the ladder one rung at a time. By 30, I was managing portfolios worth millions. I had my own corner office, my own assistant, my own reputation. My family was proud, sure, but there was always this undertone, like my success was somehow less important than Tyler's latest business venture or Emma's art degree that she'd never use. Madison's always been our little overachiever, Dad would say at family dinners, and something about the way he said it made it sound like a character flaw. The thing is, I thought I had it figured out. I thought I understood my place in the family hierarchy. I was the self-sufficient one, so I got less attention. Fair enough, I'd made peace with that. What I didn't know was that while I was building my own life, my family was stealing my future. It started with a client meeting that Tuesday morning. Mrs. Henderson, a 70-year-old widow, came in to discuss her estate planning. She mentioned a trust fund her late husband had set up for their grandchildren. The beauty of it, she said, is that the kids don't even know it exists. When they turn 35, surprise, a nest egg to help them buy their first homes or start families. That's when it hit me. I was 34. In just a few months, I'd be 35. My grandmother had died when I was 15. Grandma Rose, my dad's mother, had been loaded. Old money from a family that had made their fortune in steel back in the 1920s. I remembered the reading of her will, sitting in a stuffy lawyer's office while some ancient attorney droned on about bequests and beneficiaries. I'd inherited some jewelry and a few $1,000s that went straight into a college fund. Tyler got her antique car collection. Emma got her china set. But now, sitting across from Mrs. Henderson, a memory surfaced. Something about a trust. The lawyer had mentioned something about additional provisions, but I'd been 15 and bored out of my mind. That afternoon, I called my dad. "Hey, kiddo," he answered on the second ring. "What's up?" "Dad, I have a weird question. Do you remember Grandma Rose's will? Was there anything about a trust fund?" Silence, just for a beat, but I caught it. In my line of work, you learn to listen for what people don't say as much as what they do. A trust fund? No, honey, I don't think so. Why do you ask? Just something a client mentioned got me thinking about estate planning. Well, you know your grandmother left you that lovely jewelry. Are you thinking about having it appraised? The deflection was smooth, but it was still a deflection. And Robert Clark didn't deflect unless he had something to hide. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about that pause, that slight shift in his voice. The next morning, I did what I do best. I investigated. I started with public records. Probate documents are public information, and I had access to databases through work. It took me 3 hours to find what I was looking for. Grandma Rose's will was even longer than I remembered. Buried on page 17 in language so dense it read like ancient Greek was a provision for 3 separate trust funds, one for each grandchild, each worth $500,000 to be dispersed when we turned 35. My hands shook as I read it. $500,000, $500,000 that I'd never known existed, but that wasn't the worst part. The worst part was what came next. I pulled up the trust management records. The funds had been managed by Pinnacle Trust Company for nearly 20 years. All 3 accounts had been established, funded, and left to grow. Tyler's account showed a balance of $847,000. $20 years of compound interest had been good to him. Emma's account showed $823,000, also healthy and growing. My account showed $23,000. I stared at the screen for a full minute, sure I was reading it wrong. But the numbers didn't lie, they never do. Someone had been systematically draining my trust fund for years. I dug deeper. Transaction records showed regular withdrawals, always just under the threshold that would require additional approval. $15,000 here, $20,000 there. The withdrawals were authorized by the secondary beneficiary listed on the account, Robert Clark, my father. 20 years of theft, nearly $500,000 stolen, $20,000 at a time. My phone rang. It was my assistant. Madison, your 2 o'clock is here. I somehow made it through the rest of that day, going through the motions of client meetings and portfolio reviews while my world crumbled around me. Every smile felt like it was cracking my face. Every professional interaction felt like a performance. That evening, I drove to my parents' house. Not to confront them, not yet. I needed more information first. I needed to understand the scope of this betrayal. Madison, Mom opened the door with a bright smile. What a nice surprise, we weren't expecting you. Just wanted to stop by, I said, accepting her hug and hating how normal it felt. Is Dad home? He's in his office. Tyler's here too, actually. He's telling us about his new business idea. Of course he was. Tyler's business ideas were legendary in our family. The food truck that lasted 3 months, the app that never got past the concept stage, the cryptocurrency trading venture that somehow always needed just a little more capital to really take off. I found them in Dad's study. Tyler sprawled in one of the leather chairs while Dad sat behind his massive mahogany desk. They were looking at something on Dad's computer screen. Hey Madison, Tyler said without looking up. Perfect timing. I was just showing Dad the projections for my new company. Another company? I sat down in the chair across from him, studying his face. My brother was 36, handsome in that effortless way that had carried him through life. But now I was looking at him differently. Now I was wondering how much he knew. It's going to revolutionize the meal delivery space, he said, his eyes lighting up the way they always did when he talked about his latest scheme. We're calling it Fresh Start. The idea is premium meal kits but with locally sourced ingredients and celebrity chef partnerships. Sounds expensive to start up, I said carefully. Dad cleared his throat. Well, we've been discussing ways to help Tyler get the capital he needs. Family investment, you know. How much capital are we talking about? About $40,000 to get started, Tyler said. Dad thinks it's a solid opportunity. $40,000, more than I made in 6 months when I first started working. Money that Tyler expected to just appear because he'd asked for it. That's a lot of money, I said. Not for a business investment, Dad replied. Besides, Tyler's put together a very thorough business plan. I doubted that. Tyler's idea of a business plan was usually a few bullet points on a napkin. What about you, Madison? Mom asked, bringing in a tray of coffee. How's work going? Busy, I said. Actually, I've been learning a lot about trust funds lately. It's fascinating how they work, how money can be set aside for decades and just grow. Dad's coffee cup paused halfway to his lips. Trust funds? Just something that came up with a client. Got me thinking about long-term wealth planning. Well, that's good, Mom said brightly. It's never too early to start thinking about the future. The irony was suffocating. I stayed for another hour making small talk and observing, watching Dad avoid eye contact when money came up. Watching Tyler casually assume that his latest venture would be funded. Watching Mom flutter around, serving coffee and cookies, either completely oblivious or a better actress than I'd given her credit for. When I left, I sat in my car in their driveway for 10 minutes staring at the house I'd grown up in. The house that had been renovated twice in the past 5 years. The house with the new pool, the new kitchen, the new 3-car garage. All funded, I was beginning to realize, with my money. Over the next week, I became obsessed. I used every resource at my disposal, called in favors from colleagues in different departments, pieced together a financial puzzle that made me sick to my stomach. The withdrawals from my trust fund hadn't been random, they'd been strategic. Every time Tyler needed money for a new venture, there was a corresponding withdrawal from my account. When Emma wanted to study abroad her junior year of college, another $25,000 disappeared. When my parents renovated their kitchen 5 years ago, $40,000 vanished. They'd been using my inheritance as their personal ATM for 2 decades. But it got worse. I found records of loans my father had taken out using the trust as collateral. Loans he defaulted on, forcing the trust company to liquidate assets to cover the debt. My money hadn't just been stolen, it had been gambled away. I also discovered that I wasn't the only one being kept in the dark. Tyler and Emma had no idea their trust funds existed either. The difference was theirs were still intact. Growing, waiting for them. Mine was gone. I needed help, but I couldn't talk to anyone in my family. I couldn't talk to my friends about it. How do you explain that your own parents have been systematically robbing you? Instead, I did what I always did when I was in trouble. I called my mentor. Sarah Morrison was the founding partner of our firm, a woman who'd built her career in finance when the industry was even more male-dominated than it is now. She was tough, fair, and had never steered me wrong. Madison, she said when I knocked on her office door Friday afternoon. You look terrible, what's going on? I told her everything, about the trust fund, the withdrawals, the pattern of theft. She listened without interrupting, her expression growing grimmer with each detail. Jesus, she said when I finished. How much are we talking about total? Close to $500,000 over 20 years. Sarah leaned back in her chair. And your siblings don't know? I don't think so. Their accounts are untouched. Madison, this is fraud, plain and simple. You need to call the police. They're my family. They're thieves who happen to share your DNA, she said bluntly. Look, I understand this is complicated, but they've stolen your future, your security, your choices. That money could have been a house, retirement savings, freedom to take risks in your career. They took all of that from you. She was right, but knowing she was right didn't make it easier. What do I do? First, you document everything. Print out every record, every transaction, every email, create a timeline. Then you decide whether you want to handle this as a family matter or a legal matter. What's the difference? Family matter means you confront them privately, demand restitution, hope they do the right thing. Legal matter means lawyers, fraud charges, possible criminal prosecution. I thought about Tyler's latest business venture, about Emma's art degree and her year abroad, about my parents' renovated house and their comfortable retirement, all funded with my money. Can I think about it over the weekend? Of course, but Madison, don't wait too long. There might be statute of limitations issues if you decide to go the legal route. That weekend was the longest of my life. I kept thinking about family dinners, about Tyler's easy assumption that money would always be there when he needed it, about Emma's sweet smile when she thanked Dad for paying her student loans, about my parents' proud smiles when they talked about their successful children. All of it was a lie. Sunday night, I made my decision. I was going to confront them, but I was going to do it smart. I was going to use every skill I'd learned in 15 years of financial planning to back them into a corner they couldn't escape. First, I needed more ammunition. Monday morning, I called Pinnacle Trust Company. This is Madison Clark, I told the trust officer assigned to my account. I'm calling about my grandmother's trust fund. I'll be 35 next month and I'd like to understand the distribution process. Of course, Ms. Clark. I've been managing your account for the past 3 years. I have to say it's unusual to see someone so actively involved in managing their trust before distribution. Actively involved? Well, your father has been very hands-on with the investment decisions. Most trustees prefer a more passive approach. My blood ran cold. Investment decisions? Yes, he's moved money in and out quite frequently over the years. High-risk, high-reward strategies. Unfortunately, they haven't all paid off. I see. Could you send me a complete transaction history? I'd like to review everything before we proceed with distribution. Absolutely, I'll have that to you by tomorrow. When those records arrived, they told a story even worse than I'd imagined. My father hadn't just been stealing from my trust fund, he'd been gambling with it. High-risk stock purchases, cryptocurrency investments, real estate ventures that had all gone belly up. He'd lost $200,000 in a single day trading options. Another $150,000 had gone into a commercial real estate deal that had folded within 6 months. The rest had been slow-bled through a series of loans to family members that were never repaid. But here's the thing about being a financial advisor. You learn to read between the lines. And what I saw in those records wasn't just theft and gambling, it was desperation. My father was in serious financial trouble. I pulled his credit report, easy enough to do with his social security number and the family information I had access to. What I found there made everything click into place. Robert Clark was drowning in debt. Credit cards maxed out, second mortgage on the house, business loans in default. The successful real estate developer image was a facade. He'd been using my trust fund to keep his head above water for years. Now I had a choice. I could destroy him. One phone call to the authorities and his career would be over. His reputation would be ruined. My family would implode, or I could play this smart. Tuesday evening, I called my dad. Hey kiddo, what's up? I need to talk to you and Mom. Can I come over tonight? Of course, is everything okay? We'll talk when I get there. I drove to their house with a folder full of evidence and a script I'd rehearsed a dozen times. I was nervous, but I was also angry. 20 years of anger finally finding its voice. They were waiting in the living room when I arrived, both of them looking concerned. Madison, you sounded upset on the phone, Mom said. What's wrong? I sat down across from them and opened my folder. I know about the trust fund, I said simply. The color drained from Dad's face. Mom looked confused. What trust fund? She asked. The one Grandma Rose set up for Tyler, Emma, and me. The one worth $500,000 that Dad's been stealing from for 20 years. The silence that followed was deafening. Dad stared at his hands. Mom looked back and forth between us, realization dawning on her face. Robert, she whispered, what is she talking about? How long have you known? I asked him, ignoring Mom's question. Madison, I can explain how long. Since you were 18, he said quietly. Since you started college. You've been stealing from me for 16 years. It wasn't stealing, it was borrowing. I always intended to pay it back. With what money? I pulled out his credit report and slapped it on the coffee table. You're $500,000 in debt. Your business is failing. You've got 3 mortgages on this house. Mom picked up the credit report with shaking hands. Robert, is this true? Linda, I can fix this. The Peterson development is going to turn around. The Peterson development that you defaulted on 6 months ago? I interrupted. The one that cost you $75,000 of my money, he flinched. You've been investigating me. I'm a financial advisor, Dad. This is what I do. Madison, Mom said, her voice barely a whisper. I didn't know, I swear to you, I didn't know about any of this. I believed her. Mom had always left the finances to Dad, but her ignorance didn't absolve her of the consequences. Here's what's going to happen, I said, pulling out the documents I'd prepared. You're going to sign over the deed to this house to me. You're going to liquidate every asset you have. You're going to take out a loan against Dad's life insurance policy, and you're going to pay me back every penny you stole. Madison, be reasonable. We can't just, or, I continued, cutting Dad off, I call the police. I press charges for fraud, theft, and breach of fiduciary duty. I file a civil suit that will cost you everything you have left and probably send you to prison. Dad's face went gray. You would do that to your own father. You did it to your own daughter. Mom started crying. Quiet, devastated sobs that might have broken my heart if I hadn't learned to protect it so well. There's more, I said. Tyler and Emma are going to find out about their trust funds from me tonight. Madison, please, Dad said, don't drag them into this. They deserve to know what they're inheriting. They deserve to know why. I stood up, gathering my papers. You have 48 hours to decide. Sign the paperwork and start making restitution, or I go to the authorities. What about the family? Mom asked through her tears. What about Christmas and birthdays, and what about them? I turned to look at her. You think we can just pretend this never happened? You think I can sit around your dinner table and listen to Tyler talk about his new business ventures, knowing you funded them with my stolen money? We're still your family, she whispered. No, I said. A family protects each other. A family doesn't steal from each other. You're my parents, but you're not my family anymore. I left them there, sitting in their living room with the evidence of their betrayal spread out on the coffee table. I had 2 more stops to make. Tyler lived in a trendy loft downtown, the kind of place that cost $4,000 a month and came with exposed brick walls and floor-to-ceiling windows. I'd always wondered how he afforded it on his sporadic income. Now I knew. He answered the door in designer jeans and a cashmere sweater, looking like he'd just stepped out of a catalog. Madison, this is unexpected. Come in, come in. His loft was even more expensive than I'd imagined. Italian leather furniture, original art on the walls, a kitchen with appliances that cost more than most people's cars. Nice place, I said. Thanks, can I get you some wine? I just opened a bottle of this amazing Bordeaux. Tyler, we need to talk. Something in my tone must have warned him because his easy smile faltered. Okay, talk about what? About Grandma Rose's trust fund. He went very still. What trust fund? The one she set up for all 3 of us. The one you don't know about because Dad never told you. I watched the confusion play across his face, followed by calculation, followed by a dawning understanding that made him sink into his expensive sofa. How much? He asked quietly. Your account has $847,000 in it. Emma's has $823,000. And yours, $23,000. Jesus. He rubbed his face with his hands. Madison, I didn't know. I swear I didn't know. But you knew something, I said. You knew Dad always had money when you needed it. You knew he never said no to your business ventures. I thought he believed in me. He does believe in you, enough to steal $500,000 from me to fund your dreams. Tyler looked around his loft with new eyes. How much of this is yours? All of it. Every business you started, every loan you couldn't pay back, every time Dad bailoed you out, it all came from my trust fund. Madison, I'm sorry, I'm so fucking sorry. Sorry doesn't give me back 20 years of stolen money. What do you want me to do? I want you to grow up, I said. I want you to get a real job and pay me back every penny Dad gave you. I don't have that kind of money. Then figure it out. Sell the loft, sell the car, sell everything you bought with my inheritance. And if I don't, I looked at him for a long moment, my big brother who taught me to ride a bike and helped me with my homework, who'd also spent the last 20 years living off my stolen money. Then we'll have a problem. Emma was harder. She lived in a small apartment in Brooklyn, working as a freelance graphic designer and barely making ends meet. When I knocked on her door, she answered in paint-stained jeans and an oversized sweater, her blonde hair pulled back in a messy bun. Madison, what are you doing here? We need to talk, Em. Her apartment was tiny but cozy, filled with her artwork and vintage furniture she'd collected over the years. It was the first place I'd been to all day that felt honest. Want some tea? She asked, bustling around her small kitchen. Sure. She made chamomile tea in mismatched mugs and curled up across from me on her second-hand sofa. You look serious, she said. What's going on? And what do you know about Grandma Rose's will? I know she left me her china set and you got her jewelry. Tyler got those weird old cars. Why? She also set up trust funds for all of us. Emma's mug paused halfway to her lips. Trust funds, each worth about $800,000 now. The mug slipped from her hands, shattering on the hardwood floor. Hot tea splashed everywhere. Oh shit, she said, staring at the mess. I'm sorry, look at me. She met my eyes, hers wide with shock. $800,000, that's yours, you get it when you turn 35. But that's next year, I know. Madison, this is insane, are you sure? I pulled out the documents showing her account balance. She read them twice, then looked up at me. Where's yours? Gone, Dad's been stealing from it for 20 years. The color drained from her face. What do you mean stealing? I told her everything. About the withdrawals, the gambling, the loans that were never repaid. About how Tyler's business ventures and her study abroad program had been funded with my money. Madison, I had no idea. I would never have taken the money if I'd known. I know you wouldn't have. What are you going to do? I'm going to make them pay it back. Emma was quiet for a long time, processing everything I'd told her. Is this going to destroy our family? She finally asked. Our family was destroyed the day Dad decided to steal from me. We just didn't know it yet. That night, I sat in my apartment with a bottle of wine and my laptop, staring at the email I drafted to the police fraud division. One click and this would be out of my hands. One click and my father would probably go to prison. My phone rang. Tyler. Madison, I've been thinking about what you said. And I'm going to pay you back all of it. How? I've already called a realtor about the loft. And I'm going to take that job at Marcus & Associates, the one I turned down last month. Marcus & Associates was a big investment firm. The job Tyler had turned down because it was too corporate, too much like actual work. That's a start, I said. Madison, I know you're angry. I know you have every right to be, but don't let this destroy what's left of our family. There's not much left to destroy. There's us, there's Emma. There's Mom. Mom knew. No, she didn't. I talked to her after you left. She's devastated. She had no idea what Dad was doing. I wanted to believe that. For Mom's sake, I wanted to believe it. It doesn't matter, I said. The damage is done. It matters to me. You matter to me. For a moment, I almost broke. Almost let myself believe that we could get through this as a family. Then I remembered 20 years of watching Tyler get everything he wanted while I worked for everything I had. Good night, Tyler. Madison, wait, I hung up. 48 hours later, my parents showed up at my office. They looked like they'd aged 10 years in 2 days. Dad's signature was shaky when he signed the paperwork transferring the house deed to me. Mom cried the entire time. This is going to take us years to pay back, Dad said as he signed the loan documents against his life insurance. It took you 20 years to steal it. Madison, Mom said, I know you're angry, but we're still your parents. We love you. Love doesn't steal, I replied. Love doesn't lie. For 20 years. They left my office with nothing but the promise that they'd have the first installment of my money within 30 days. I watched them walk away, two old people whose comfortable retirement had just evaporated, and I felt nothing. That's not true. I felt relief. 3 months later, Tyler sold his loft and moved into a modest apartment in Queens. He took the job at Marcus & Associates and started sending me $2,000 a month. It would take him 15 years to pay back what he owed me, but it was a start. Emma refused to access her trust fund until I was whole again. It doesn't feel right, she said, knowing what it cost you. She was the only one who seemed to understand the real cost of their betrayal. My parents moved into a rental apartment and took part-time jobs to supplement Dad's reduced income. Mom started working at a boutique. Dad took consulting work when he could get it. They aged overnight, the stress of their financial situation and the loss of their family taking its toll. Every month they sent me what they could. Sometimes it was $500, sometimes it was $200. It wasn't much, but it was acknowledgement. It was admission of guilt. The money mattered, sure, but the admission mattered more. I could have been satisfied with that. I could have let it end there, with my parents struggling to make restitution and Tyler working a job he hated to pay me back. But then I found out about the others. It started with a phone call from Jessica Patterson, not the Jessica from the earlier story, but a different Jessica entirely. Jessica Morales, a paralegal at a law firm that specialized in trust and estate litigation. Ms. Clark, I hope you don't mind me calling. I got your name from Pinnacle Trust Company. I'm working on a case that might interest you. What kind of case? Trustee fraud. We represent several beneficiaries whose trust funds were mismanaged or embezzled by family members acting as trustees. My blood ran cold. How many? So far, 12 families, totaling about $4 million in stolen assets. And Pinnacle Trust knew? Not exactly. The trustee has broad discretionary powers, especially when they're family members. Unless someone complains or audits the accounts, these things can go on for years. Are you planning to file suit? We're considering a class action. The trust company has some liability here. They should have been monitoring the accounts more closely. I met Jessica Morales the next day. She was a sharp, efficient woman about my age who'd been working on financial fraud cases for 5 years. Your case is actually what started this investigation, she told me over coffee. When you requested the transaction history, it flagged some internal auditing protocols. They started looking at other accounts with similar patterns and found 11 other families going through the same thing. Exactly. Parents, siblings, uncles, grandparents, all stealing from trust funds they were supposed to be protecting. She showed me some of the other cases. A woman whose brother had stolen $300,000 to fund his drug habit. A man whose mother had drained his account to pay for his sister's medical school. A family where the grandmother had been systematically looting all the grandchildren's accounts to maintain her lifestyle. The thing is, Jessica said, most of these victims don't even know they've been robbed. They don't find out until they try to access their money at 35 or 40, and by then the trail is cold and the money's gone. What's the average theft? About $200,000 per victim, but yours is the largest single theft we've documented. I felt sick. My family wasn't uniquely terrible, they were just more successful at being terrible. What do you need from me? Your testimony, your documentation. You've got the most complete record of fraud we've seen. Your case could be the linchpin for holding the trust company accountable. What does that mean for my family? Jessica's expression softened. It means they're going to face criminal charges, federal charges probably since this crosses state lines. I thought about my parents in their small apartment, about Tyler working 60-hour weeks to pay me back, about Emma refusing to touch her inheritance. Do you need an answer today? Take your time, but Madison, these people destroyed your future. They don't get to avoid consequences just because they're family. That night, I called Emma. There's going to be a lawsuit, I told her. Federal charges, prison time for Dad, probably. Oh God, she whispered. Madison, what are you going to do? I don't know. He's an old man. Prison could kill him. He's 62. That's not old. You know what I mean. I didn't know what she meant. Dad had high blood pressure, a heart condition. The stress of this had already taken its toll. What would you do? I asked her. I don't know, but Madison, whatever you decide, I'll support you. Tyler's reaction was different. You have to do it, he said when I told him about the lawsuit. Not just for you, but for the other victims. It's going to destroy what's left of our family. Our family was destroyed years ago. We're just finally acknowledging it. Tyler, no, listen to me. I've been thinking about this a lot, about what kind of man steals from his own daughter. About what kind of brother benefits from that theft for 20 years without questioning where the money was coming from. His voice was thick with emotion. We're not good people, Madison. Maybe we can be, but we're not now. And Dad's never going to be held accountable unless someone forces him to be. Even if it means prison, even if it means prison. In the end, the decision was made for me. Dad had a heart attack 2 weeks later. Mom called me from the hospital, hysterical. Madison, please come, please, he's asking for you. I found him in the cardiac ICU, looking small and gray against the white hospital sheets. Mom sat beside him, holding his hand. Madison, he whispered when he saw me. I sat down on the other side of his bed. Dad, I'm sorry for everything. I'm so sorry. I know. I never meant for it to go so far. It started with just a little when Tyler needed help with college. I thought I could pay it back before you turned 35. Dad, don't talk. You need to rest. No, I need to say this. I need you to know that I love you, that I'm proud of you, that you deserved better from me. I felt tears starting and wiped them away quickly. Dad, promise me something. What? Don't let this destroy you. Don't let my mistakes make you bitter. I'm already bitter. Then find your way back to who you were before all this. He squeezed my hand with what little strength he had. Be happy, kiddo, that's all I ever wanted for you. Dad survived the heart attack, but it changed everything. Seeing him in that hospital bed, facing his own mortality, put things in perspective. He was never going to be the father I'd wanted him to be. He was never going to undo 20 years of theft and lies. But he was still my father. I withdrew from the lawsuit. Jessica Morales wasn't happy about it, but she understood. Some battles aren't worth winning, she said. The other victims proceeded without me. The trust company eventually settled for $2.5 million, split among the remaining plaintiffs. Justice was served, just not for me. Instead, I got something different. I got peace. Here's what I learned. You can't steal someone's future, but you can't return it either. What's gone is gone. The real question is what you do with what's left. Dad died 2 years later. Not from another heart attack, but from complications from a stroke. In his final months, he used what little energy he had to work on a detailed accounting of every penny he'd taken from my trust fund. A handwritten ledger that showed every withdrawal, every bad investment, every loan to Tyler that was never repaid. It was his confession and his apology rolled into one. At his funeral, I stood at the podium and talked about the father I'd loved as a child before I knew what he was capable of. I talked about the man who taught me to ride a bike and helped me with my math homework. I didn't mention the man who'd stolen my future. Tyler spoke too. He talked about accountability and redemption, about the work he was still doing to pay back what he owed. He'd been promoted twice at Marcus & Associates and was on track to pay me back in full within 10 years instead of 15. Emma had finally accessed her trust fund and used half of it to start a nonprofit for financial literacy education. She was teaching people to recognize the warning signs of financial abuse. It was fitting somehow. After the funeral, Mom and I sat in her small apartment, drinking tea and looking through old photo albums. Do you hate me? She asked. No, Mom, I don't hate you, but you don't trust me. No, I don't trust you, she nodded, accepting that. Can we try to rebuild something, not what we had before, but something new? Maybe, but it has to be honest, completely honest. I understand. We've been working on it, slowly. Mom and I have lunch once a month now. We talk about safe things, her job at the boutique, my work, the weather. We're learning to be around each other without the weight of 20 years of lies. Tyler and I talk more now than we have since we were kids. Funny how theft and betrayal can strip away all the pretense and leave you with something more real than what you had before. Emma and I were always close, but now we're closer. She's the only one who truly understands what this cost me because she's the only one who was willing to sacrifice her own windfall to make things right. As for me, I'm okay, better than okay, actually. I bought a house with the money I got back from my parents' property sale. Nothing fancy, just a small craftsman bungalow with good bones and a garden where I can grow tomatoes. It's mine, completely mine, in a way that nothing ever was when I thought I was part of a loving family. I've been promoted to senior partner at Morrison and Associates. I make good money, enough to live comfortably and save for the future that was stolen from me. More importantly, I sleep well at night knowing that every dollar I have was earned through my own work. I've also started volunteering with Jessica Morale's firm, helping other victims of financial fraud. There are more of us than you'd think, people whose families saw their money as a resource to be exploited rather than a future to be protected. Sometimes people ask me if I regret not pursuing criminal charges, if I wish I'd been harder on my family, more ruthless in seeking justice. The truth is, I got something better than justice. I got clarity. I know who my family really is now. Not the fairy tale version I grew up believing in, but the flawed, damaged people they actually are. Dad was a man who loved his children but was too weak to resist the temptation of easy money. Mom was someone who preferred willful ignorance to uncomfortable truths. Tyler was entitled and careless with other people's sacrifices. Emma was innocent but benefited from that innocence. And me. I was naive enough to believe that family meant protection instead of exploitation. But here's the thing about losing your illusions. It hurts like hell, but it also sets you free. I don't spend my energy wondering why my parents loved me less than Tyler and Emma. I know now that it wasn't about love, it was about convenience. I was independent, so they took from me to give to the ones who needed more. I don't waste time wishing for the family I thought I had. That family never existed. The real family I have now is messy and broken and built on a foundation of acknowledged wrongdoing, but it's honest. That's worth something. Most importantly, I don't define myself by what was taken from me anymore. For years after I discovered the theft, I carried that betrayal like a weight. Every decision I made, every relationship I had was filtered through the lens of being someone whose own family had robbed her blind. That's no way to live. Instead, I define myself by what I built after the theft was discovered. The career I advanced without anyone's help. The house I bought with money I earned. The relationships I've formed with people who see me as I am, not as the convenient victim I used to be. The money helped, sure. Getting back even half of what was stolen gave me options I wouldn't have had otherwise. But the real victory was discovering that I didn't need their approval, their support, or their love to build a life worth living. I am not the daughter who was stolen from. I am the woman who fought back. 2 months ago, I got a call from Pinnacle Trust Company. They'd restructured their oversight procedures after the lawsuit, and they wanted to offer me a consulting position helping them identify potential fraud patterns in family-managed trusts. It was the perfect job, using my skills to protect other people from what happened to me, turning my experience into expertise that could save someone else's future. I said yes. Last week, I caught my first case. A grandmother had been systematically draining her grandson's trust fund to pay for her other grandchildren's private school tuition. When I called the beneficiary, a 34-year-old teacher named Michael, to tell him what I'd found, he went silent for a long moment. "How much is supposed to be there?" he finally asked. "About $400,000. "And how much is left?" "47,000. "Jesus, my grandmother." "Yes." Another long silence. "What do I do now?" "That's up to you," I told him. "But Michael, you have options, you have rights, and you have someone who understands what you're going through." We talked for 2 hours. I told him about resources for fraud victims, legal options, family mediation services. But mostly I told him what I wish someone had told me, that being betrayed by family doesn't mean you're broken. It means they are. At the end of our conversation, he asked, "Does it get easier?" "It gets different," I told him. "It gets clearer, and clear is better than confused, even when clear hurts." That's the truth I've learned from all of this. Some betrayals are so fundamental that they change the shape of your life forever. You can't go back to who you were before you knew what your family was capable of, but you can go forward to someone better. If you're watching this and you recognize something in my story, if you're wondering whether your family's financial dynamics are normal, if you're questioning where certain money came from or went to trust that instinct, dig deeper. Ask questions. Financial abuse happens more often than people want to admit, and it's usually perpetrated by the people closest to us. By people who love us but love their own comfort more. You deserve to know where you stand, you deserve to know what's yours, and you deserve to build your future on honesty instead of lies. It took me 34 years to learn that lesson. Don't let it take you that long. Thank you for listening to my story. If it resonated with you, please share it. There are more people out there like Michael, like me, who need to know they're not alone. And remember, your family is supposed to be the people who protect your future, not the ones who steal it. If that's not what you have, you can build something better. Trust me on this one. I know what I'm talking about. Drop a comment below and let me know. Have you ever discovered something about your family that changed everything? How did you handle it? I read every comment and your stories matter to me. Hit that subscribe button if you want to hear more about financial fraud, family dynamics, and what it really takes to rebuild your life after betrayal. Until next time, protect your future. Because if you don't, someone else might decide to steal it.